Okay, but also just because you took an IQ test and found out you're dumb does not mean there's a problem with the IQ system, Lemons.
No, well,
So we got podcast number 2 of the Last Bastion. We got with us Spaghetts, we got Mr. Lemon, and we got Toxic Masculinity here. We're gonna be
Hello.
talking about some Liam Neeson news. He did an oopsie. We got a Washington baker who made some cookies. He made an oopsie. High school student also did an oopsie when he was in a debate team.
yeah,
And
debatably, oopsie.
Gavin McInnes is suing the Southern Poverty Law Center. So I guess we're starting with Liam Neeson. Toxic, you want to explain?
I want to say first off, that's a hell of a lot of oopsies that we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, let's talk about our boy, Liam Neeson.
Okay.
So to give you long story short, if you guys aren't up to date, way back when, this is probably, I don't know, I guess I should read the article for specific dates. I had a close friend that was raped by a black guy, and he took it upon himself to try to get revenge. So for a week, he was pretty much looking for a fight with a black guy so that he could kill him to avenge his friend. And he recently told that story on some news outlet, and now everybody is pissed off, saying Liam Neeson is a racist and all this crap. So he's in hot water right now.
Yeah, well, this was when. How old was he at the time?
Early 20s. I don't know how old he is actually, but
Oh, he said nearly 40 years ago. So yeah, he must have been in his 20s.
let's
I mean,
see.
that.
He's 66, so
Oh,
mid-20s.
Jesus. Okay, yeah. I mean, that is fucked up, though. I didn't hear about this until you sent it to me, but like, it's pretty fucked up.
Yeah,
Well,
I thought it was odd that he just walked around looking for any black guy.
Yeah.
And they say at the end of this article we're reading, but he said he would have had the same reaction if it was a white guy.
Yeah, he definitely like tried to spin it so that
would have been a lot more white people. Would have made it easier, but yeah, I don't know. I thought it was weird that he was walking around just for looking for anyone.
yeah,
Really.
yeah, pretty messed
I
up.
would. You said he would do the same thing if it was a white guy, but I would dispute that. Not saying that he wouldn't do it, but specifically he said he wanted to, quote, kill a black bastard.
Yeah.
So he purposely specified that he wanted not only to kill a bastard, but he had to be black. So that was definitely a big part of it.
Yeah, right before it, they say specifically, like, so his immediate reaction, he asked who it was, or she didn't know who it was, so he asked what color they were, and she said it was a black person. He also asked, which it didn't say until later in the article, he also asked if they were tall, big, short, everything like that, which the reporter came to him first with and said, why did you immediately go to race? But supposedly he did ask about the other stuff, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Well,
what?
Okay.
You're just saying that he's lying about that?
No, what I'm saying is if he was going to kill anyone regardless, he seems like he was pretty hell-bent on killing a black guy specifically.
Yeah.
So let's say it was a white guy, would he say, I'm going to kill that white bastard? I think, no, you probably just say bastard.
Yeah.
But again, that's like getting
Maybe.
into specifics and semantics, so
Well,
it's
I
not
mean,
that
that's
big of
why
a deal.
that's why he spun it in a way so he made it like, oh, we all have racism in us and it comes out in nasty ways or whatever. Like I think that's how he spun it. That's why he specifically said, "Oh, I was looking for a black person."
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I have an issue with all this kind of stuff in general, and it's not like I agree with it in any way, but like it was 40 years ago, and the world was a lot different place back then.
That's true.
Which, like I said, I don't agree with it, but I don't know, it's a different day and age, so I feel like bringing stuff up from back then, you have to look at it in slightly a different light just because of how the world was. So I don't know. I always keep that in mind when reading this stuff.
Yeah. Even more offensive while reading this article, he spells color with a U, which I thought.
That black bastard.
Oh, I do see it without a U here, but I definitely saw it with a U, which I thought was a little offensive. But yeah. So you you had anything else to talk about, like the specific subject? Because you brought this one up.
Well, yeah, we barely even touched on it. What I think is anyone who's coming after him and making a big deal out of it is being disingenuous, because he says very clearly, and he wants to make a point, that he was disgusted by himself for doing that. Because obviously everyone's coming out and they're saying, oh, he's racist. Yes, this did happen, but I feel terrible for it, and I know it was a mistake. And looking back now, I shouldn't have ever done that, so I have different feelings now. So don't look at me and think I'm this terrible man when I just made a mistake in my thought. I didn't actually carry it out. So I think in order for him to do that, he has to have a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? I guess
Cojones.
Introspection. What?
It's like cojones.
Yeah, basically, but more so understanding who he is and the cojones to admit, look, I did think this at some point, but I realized it was wrong and it was stupid for me to do it.
Yeah. Well, and it's also in the situation that happened is like one of his very close friends was raped, so it is an intense time from himself as well, which doesn't justify it, but in terms of like just a general revenge, if you take the race out of it, like of course you're going to be mad, and things are going to adjust based on that alone. So.
Yeah, and I think there's also something to be said about situations like that where you're just overcome with rage, if you want to put it that way, or whatever emotion that you're feeling, and how easy it is, even if you don't mean for it, to become a racist thing. Let's say, you're a white guy and some other race does something to you, even though it's not right for you to think that that race is terrible for doing that, your mind might automatically jump to that just by itself. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I wouldn't say that's a racist thing. That's just how groups work. If something is different than you, you sort of develop this fear for it, whether or not that be rational or not. But I would just end it by saying, look, yeah, he made a mistake. Everybody knows he made a mistake, including him. And if he's willing to actually say and come out and admit that he thought these things at one point and to say it was wrong, I think that's a huge step. And I honestly wouldn't fault him at all.
Yeah. I mean, you're very optimistic about it. I mean, obviously it was 40 years ago, so you're saying that he must have introspectively looked at the situation and had to have changed on his own.
Yeah, because why else would he come out and say this and then also say at the same time that he was just so disgusted by it? If he didn't mind that this happened, he would be like, yeah, whatever. I'm a millionaire. You can't do shit to me. People are going to still watch my movies. But instead, he's like, no, I had this bad thought, and that was a bad time for me, and it's something I shouldn't have done.
Yeah, and it's interesting that he came out and said it himself. It wasn't something that like came out, right? Like he's the one that brought this up, right?
Right.
Yeah, it came up within the press conference for a movie that's about revenge. So, so that's how it came up initially. Is he brought it up saying, "Oh, I just did this filming for a movie, and I have this story of revenge, and I feel bad about it," all that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good story.
Yeah, I think another part of this that's important to consider is, let's say that he actually still is a racist. If you just shit on the guy and you don't at least listen to what he's saying, you're kind of taking away any opportunity there is for him to actually change. Because by just constantly harassing him and going after him, that doesn't make a racist person change. If anything, I feel like that's just going to make the entire situation worse. And obviously that doesn't justify them being racist, but you actually do have to give some thought into actually trying to help this person or change their mind. Whether or not it works, who knows? But you still have to give that opportunity.
Yeah, very optimistic, trying to have people change, and it seems in this case it did change because that was just reading that the first time. It's like pretty messed up. You wouldn't think of someone like him saying those sort of things that are so like horrible.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's also really important if you're talking about things that can't be forgiven. Taken 3 was just absolute garbage.
Oh my god, I never even saw it,
no,
so
I
I
didn't
can't
see
say
it
anything on the
either.
point.
It
But
was so bad,
I saw the
so bad.
second one, which was worse than the first one, and I decided to not watch the third one because of that. Because it was the same exact movie, that just in a slightly different way.
Was that the one where his wife got taken too? Also,
No, the second one was the
play on
wife.
words. Yeah, second one was the wife, first one was the daughter.
So what was the third one? Like stealing his Netflix password or some shit?
You were the only one that saw it. We don't know.
It was forgettable.
exactly.
That's funny.
Yeah, I didn't. I saw the first one. I don't think I saw the other ones. All right. Any other points on that topic?
I think, well, I was going to say, I think finishing up and Toxic noted on this a little bit. Like the very last line in the whole article just says violence breeds violence and bigotry breeds bigotry. I feel like it's interesting that that was said because he was being racist and violent at the time. And then now he's saying, hey, I've kind of come to terms with this. I'm putting this out there because it was wrong. And people need to know that I believe it was wrong. And so it kind of seems like what he's trying to tell people is don't be violent or a bigot towards me because it just leads to worse things. So I don't know. I liked how the article ended with that note.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know what else you could ask for from the guy. He's
Yeah.
coming out. He admitted his own guilt, said he was sorry, and it was a mistake, and then tries to build off of that by speaking from his own experience. Because he's from Ireland, right, or somewhere like that. Because it makes mention of the constant struggle in Ireland over decades.
Yeah.
And how much violence they had, and how he realized, look, this isn't actually going to help anything. I need to stop being a jackass and move forward.
Yeah, he's from Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
Yeah. You didn't ask if a person was tall, short, big, or small. You immediately went to race. So I guess, yeah, he's trying to point out like a systemic racism in like where he grew up, in the times that he grew up in.
Yeah, and he makes note it's not just a black or white thing. There's also a part that says, can't find it now, but something about being, Scottish or Lithuanian or some other.
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah, like a Brit or a Lithuanian or Irish.
Yeah.
So it's clearly not a black or white thing. It's just anyone that's different than him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he said if she had said an Irish or a Scot or a Brit or a Lithuanian, I know I would have felt the same effect. I was trying to show honor, stand up for my dear friend in this terrible medieval fashion.
Yeah, man, I can't fault the guy. Bad shit happens. Luckily, he didn't carry it through. And, times are different.
Yeah. Definitely agree.
Okay. Well.
But in that note, let's move on to some real spicy news.
Jesus.
We're going to talk about...
Which one?
We're going to talk about the Build That Wall cookies.
Washington Baker unapologizes for Build That Wall Valentine's cookies. People should lighten up. Oopsie.
Yeah, so
I have to say something real quick.
Okay, go ahead.
So this article really threw me off at first because I'm from Washington and I spent a lot of my life there. And so his name is Ken Bellingham. So Bellingham is a city in Washington, in northwest Washington. And then his cookie or his bakery is Edmunds Bakery in Edmonds. And so I was really confused because I kept seeing Bellingham's Bakery and then Edmunds Bakery. And I was like, where is this bakery? And it took me, I got through like 75% of the article before realizing that it was his name.
Oh my God.
So, yeah.
What an
Side note, but yeah. Yep.
Well, yeah, this article that I linked to, So when this first happened, he made cookies and he wrote, "Build that wall on these cookies," and he sold them. And obviously, he got a lot of flack for that. People didn't appreciate it, so he apologized. But then some time went on, and he's like, "You know what? Screw that. Taking back my apology. I'm going to keep making these cookies. You can buy them or you can not buy them, but I'm going to make them anyways. Get over it. Lighten up." So that's the story.
Yeah. Well, when I first just glanced at it, I was thinking it was like sort of like the one that happened a couple years ago, where the baker with the anti-gay wedding type stuff. But this is like totally
Yeah.
different. It's like this guy is choosing to make these cookies, and you don't have to buy them, or you don't have to go into a store. So I don't know. I don't see what the complaint really is.
Yeah, my first thing was the one thing I thought was interesting, I guess, was a little bit farther in the article. He talks about, I don't think building a wall is going to solve our problems, and he was trying to be funny, and it's not something he would actually endorse in terms of building a wall. So I just thought it was kind of weird from his part of, like, I'm just making these to make money, which from a business standpoint makes total sense. But I don't know, I just thought it was random. I was like, why would you, if you don't endorse it, why would you think to do it in the first place? But
well,
it
it's
just
kind of like
seemed funny.
what me and Toxic were talking about last week. How like I don't think companies doing this is like a good business model, because then you alienate like half of your base. But this guy, apparently it worked for him, because he says, I have so many new customers. He can't even keep
Yeah.
up with the orders. So I don't know. There's apparently a bunch of MAGA people up in Washington that are coming out of the woodwork and going to his bakery. So, but besides
Yeah.
that, I don't see an issue with him doing it in his own store, even, especially because he doesn't even like believe in making the wall or whatever. So I don't know. I don't see the complaint.
Well, I think right off the bat that it's hilarious, and I want a dozen. Where the hell is this store?
Yeah, it's in
But
Edmonds.
like Spaghetti was saying about the whole refusal to make a wedding cake for a gay wedding, I actually do think it's very similar. And then also I'd bring up another thing where I was reading this article the other day about a chef who wouldn't allow someone in if they were wearing a MAGA hat.
And
So do you have an issue with that?
I don't know the laws on that kind of stuff, but can't you refuse service to anyone technically?
I
You
think it
can.
depends on the restaurant or store, but yeah, I think a lot of places you're allowed to.
But not because of race or orientation or sex.
Um,
You,
pretty sure that's how it is.
yeah.
So I mean, yeah, you can prevent someone without a shirt from coming into your store, so I guess technically you can prevent someone with a hat on that you don't like from coming in. I don't know. I don't know the legality of it, but I mean, I think it's a stupid thing to do. I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think a lot of it comes down to morals because the whole build the wall cookies and same thing with the MAGA hats, that has nothing to do with the law. It's more so whether or not you think it's a business choice that is okay, or if you're against it, or if you think the backlash is worth it, or anything like that. Um, I think it's annoying that you would prevent someone from coming in if they're wearing a MAGA hat. But I could also see in that regard that people would be upset by these cookies. So if you're
Yeah,
gonna do it, I
but
guess
you
just do it.
you don't have to go into the bakery and buy the cookies. So I mean, it's a little different subject because
But
one,
you don't have to go to that restaurant either.
I get, well, yeah,
But the thing from
but
the
you could go to the
restaurant
bakery and buy
perspective,
something else, though. That's the difference, I guess.
yeah, and the thing with the restaurant perspective is it's a difference between the it's like a customer versus an owner of the company. So in terms of the cookies and well, let me make sure I get this right. But in terms of the cookies and the cake, it was a no, I guess not. Well, in the cookie sense, it's someone has the choice to go to this bakery and get the cookies if they want it. In terms of the restaurant, the thing that would be bothering people is the MAGA hat, and that's a customer coming into an establishment and doing that versus the establishment itself doing something. So it's different in the sense of the restaurant saying, hey, you can't come in here because you know one of your customers is going to be bugging the other customers. That's a different story than someone like a customer going into the bakery that person owns. It's that person's establishment that's doing the thing that might bother people.
Well, don't you think the MAGA hat is bothering the owner? You think the owner's doing that because the owner doesn't want to offend other patrons?
Oh, he's definitely not doing it to protect patrons. He's doing it because he hates Republicans.
Yeah, so
That's
he's doing it
probably
from
more like
because of
that,
his own issues, his own feelings.
Okay.
So,
yeah,
I mean, if it's legal and it's not losing him service, then I guess whatever. But it's just stupid. It's bringing us further apart. There's no point.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, well, when it comes to the baker, honestly, I think he just did it for laughs. I don't know his exact logic, but for instance, if he made a cookie and it said Bush did 9/11, I think that's hilarious.
Yeah,
I would totally buy that cookie.
I think he would get more trouble for that. That's all I'm saying.
You think?
I don't know, man.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think so.
I don't even know if that would make news in modern time. Rather
Really?
than, I think it's more offensive to have anything Trump related.
Dude, if Nancy Pelosi can get on the news that she claps, I think we can talk about cookies for longer.
Wait,
news
what?
is just the news is just fucked
I
up in
didn't see
general.
that.
Yeah, spaghetti doesn't pay attention to current events.
I don't have a TV to even watch news anymore, and I have less of a headache now. So
It's okay. I have a TV to watch news, and I just choose not to watch it a lot of the time.
That's good.
It depends on it. It depends.
Yeah,
I do like.
Huh?
Oh, sorry.
No,
I was just gonna say at the end of the article, I did think it was cool that he ended up making a cookie. Looks like on February 2nd, so this is pretty recent. The bakery added another picture, and it was a batch of cookies that said "Build the love" instead.
Aww.
So that kind of like, I mean, it's kind of cheesy, but I thought it was cool because he's clearly showing like he didn't mean any ill harm of it. He's not sorry for it, but he didn't mean any. Like he says in it, he's trying to be funny and just do it for business, and can't blame the guy.
Yeah, he's just being a goof. He's not.
Yeah.
He's not doing anything to hurt anyone's feelings or anything. He's just being a goof and doing what he wants to do, which is fine.
Yeah.
What isn't Valentine's Day hasn't happened yet, has it? Why is he making these cookies?
On the 14th.
Oh, so why is he making these cookies so early?
I don't know. That's a good question, actually.
Valentine's themed cookies like 2 weeks before Valentine's Day, whatever.
Yeah, I think this is another one kind of like the Liam Neeson one where it's like, I don't think there was too much harm in it, really. No. Those are some old cookies. No, I don't think there's too much harm in it, really. I think it would have been different, like for Liam Neeson, if he actually carried out beating up a black guy or black person in general.
Yeah.
And in this one, like if you just put like, I hate Mexicans or something, that would have been way worse. But just the way that he did, I feel like it's not, no harm done.
Oh, well, do you want to talk about, well, because the reason that people are offended by just the statement "build that wall" is because people put a race aspect on it, and just the thought of a wall makes people think about racism. So what do you think about that?
Oh man, this is a whole podcast episode in itself. But I mean, there's so much that can be said about it. I'm so tired of people saying that a wall is somehow racist. Get out of here, man. Like literally go back to your country.
The people that are saying that are American, though.
Yeah, they're all white liberals, every single one of them. The point that I like to make when people say that a wall is racist or anything along those lines is you realize that the Border Patrol as an agency is over 50% Latino.
Yeah.
So what exactly is the counter argument for that?
What do you mean?
Are we suggesting that Latinos are being racist against Latinos? Is that what it is?
I think that's. I don't think that's what it is, but I will say that is definitely possible that Latinos can be racist towards Latinos.
Yeah.
But
Or prejudiced again. Well, because they're Americans, so it's different. Like, an American Latino can be prejudiced towards a Mexican Latino.
No, that's not possible because only white people can be racist.
Oh God, that's another time.
Dude, we're going down a rabbit hole now.
Oh God, are we
Let's
getting into
not.
that right now?
no.
We can start it off simple and we can just
Yeah.
go around saying, do you believe that a wall is racist? I'll start by saying no.
Okay, lemons.
No, not really. I don't think it's racist. I think it's a terrible idea because I don't think it'll solve anything. But in a sense, I don't think it's racist. Just it's your interpretation of it that is. But I don't know. I have mixed feelings on the whole thing.
Yeah.
So that sounded like a non-answer before we go to spaghetti.
It's a political answer.
It kind of was, yeah. Maybe I should
All right,
join
well,
politics.
as long as you admit that you didn't give an answer, I guess that's fine.
Come back to me after spaghetti because I might.
All right.
I'm
This isn't.
trying to
We're not
formulate
doing
it.
circle time in kindergarten. You can't just pass and come back to you. What is that?
I mean, I did it in kindergarten.
Dude, he just puff passed on us.
Okay, no, I don't think it's. I do not think the wall is really a benefit, but I don't think it's racist. I mean, it's just we're doing it. If we do it, it's because of national security, because we think that people are coming across the border uninhibited by any barrier. It's not. I mean, anyone can technically come from that side of the border. We're not doing it to prevent a specific. Even if I don't know. I don't think it's racist. It's just national security, I guess. But I don't think that it will help. Does that work?
Yeah, I think that's a good enough answer for what we're talking about. Now, if you want to go into the specifics about it, I mean, there's so much that can be said. For instance, if you remember back when the caravan was the thing and everybody was talking about the caravan and how, it's going to destroy the country and all that crap. On one side,
Well, that was
the
the
right
right
side.
saying that.
Yeah, so that was the right saying, this caravan is going to destroy the country and there's terrorists and blah, blah, blah. And then there was the left side saying, oh, there's nothing to see here. There's no problems. It's going to be fine, blah, blah, blah. But both sides were wrong if you actually looked at the actual footage of it. And the reason I say that is because, first of all, I think all of the claims of terrorism were just it was just fear mongering at its finest. But on the opposite side of that, they actually did try to breach the border and they were throwing stones and doing all this other stuff where people were actually getting hurt. So it's not as if it was just this peaceful group of people just taking a walk in the meadow. So it was something in the middle. And one other thing I would add to that is the claim, and this is specifically with regard to the caravan. They were saying, oh, these people, they just want a better life and all that stuff. Here's the issue. When they made it to Tijuana, the Mexican government offered them asylum. They said, look, you can stay here. Everything's going to be fine. We'll get you jobs, all that stuff. And they said, no, we don't want your asylum. We don't want you. We're going north. You can't stop us. And then after a certain amount of time, after being encamped in Tijuana for so long, their government is like, look, we don't want you people here anymore. You need to be deported. So then they started deporting them in Mexico. So why is it okay that Mexico can do this, but when America does it, it's racist and bigoted?
Because I mean, like you said before, people of the same race can't be, or ethnicity can't be racist towards themselves, each other, is the mindset, I guess.
But they didn't come from Tijuana.
I know. I mean, I don't know, man. I haven't looked that much into this.
Yeah, I don't think there's an answer for that really. Like, it's just something that happens.
It is very interesting because I have friends that live at the border of Texas, and they actually remember when Trump went down to the border and stuff. He went down to their town because that's how close. It's like my friends live like they could throw a rock at the wall, and like I kept asking him like, is it common? Like, what's going on? And then it just nothing happened with it. Like I didn't. I mean, I don't have news to look at this stuff really, but I haven't heard anything since, so I don't really know what happened to the caravan. And like, did it just disband and they all got sent back, or did some of them get over here? I don't even know what happened, you know?
Oh, dude, there were so many news articles about what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I won't go too much into it because we're kind of getting off topic, but if you remember or if you heard at any point, there were so many articles saying that the United States fired upon unarmed citizens in Mexico or unarmed people in Mexico, and they were saying that we committed war crimes and all this other crap, all because Border Patrol was firing tear gas at the caravan as they were trying to break through the border. And all these media sites were saying that we were committing war crimes and everybody was up in arms. And I was thinking to myself, what are you talking about? Are you saying that we should just let them just stroll right through the border, bulldoze our border patrol agents, and then call it a day? Is that what you're suggesting?
Well, I mean, these are
Yeah,
these are the same people that don't want a border wall, which is a preventative method. They'd rather them come here and then figure a way to either make them legal or kick them out, I guess. So I don't know.
yeah.
I just think
Well,
it's weird because using tear gas is riot control 101. Anytime there's any type of massive protest or massive civil unrest, let's say it's Antifa, causing trouble in LA, the police are going to come out and use tear gas. It's just how it works. It's not a war crime. You're
yeah,
not you're not attacking unarmed civilians. That's not what it is. It's the most non it's what am I trying to say? It's the best non-lethal option for dispersing a crowd without actually hurting anyone.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
And the news coverage was just so ridiculous. It pissed
Yeah,
me
it's a
off.
whole other issue um that we could get on at some point. News not being
Okay.
news and being more about feelings and I don't know, propaganda and that kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
it's a hard.
Well,
The whole thing is a hard subject. But yeah, yeah. What are you gonna say,
yeah.
Lemons?
I was just gonna go back to my non uh non-political answer, I
Mm-hmm.
guess, about the wall. I don't think it's racist. Because like Spaghetti said, it's just something that we're using as a defensive, like as a defense, as a proactive thing versus a reactive thing. So in its essence, I don't find it racist, but I also still agree that it's not. If we made it, it's not really going to change much.
I guess
So,
if anything, it's nationalist, if you want to call it some ism,
I guess, yeah,
because we're trying to defend our country against other countries, and
yeah. But I feel like that's fairly normal throughout the world for the
yeah,
most
yeah.
part.
I just don't think that it's gonna do anything. I mean, the way that it's portrayed by the president in the media and stuff, how it's just gonna be a big wall that I mean, people come in other ways. There's already tunnels everywhere. A wall's not gonna prevent that. They're gonna get here if they want to get here. I don't know. I mean, it might
Yeah,
stop some, but I don't know if it's gonna be a major. I haven't seen good arguments as to why the wall is gonna work. Like I've heard Crowder say like, "Oh, it worked in Israel and stuff like that," or I mean, but Israel's what
Well, clearly
so
not, because there
small.
are still Jews in the States.
What? No.
I will
There
say,
because what?
I was just gonna say, I will say, it did not work for the Chinese.
Well, yeah, it did because there's no Mexicans in China.
That's a big ass wall.
Well, yeah, I
Man.
don't know. Did it? It didn't work for them. Who was it against? The
No,
Mongols or something? I don't know. I'm not into ancient
yeah,
history.
it's the
It's those damn Mongolians.
Mongolians.
Well, yeah. So I don't think Israel's a good example because if you look at the size of their border wall versus what our border is, it's not even comparable, is it, in size?
No.
So I don't think it's even a good comparison. And they still have issues all the time over there with, I mean, their issues are a lot worse than ours, I guess. They have rockets coming over their wall.
Yeah.
But, and we have a lot of people, like, I was talking to Toxic about this, but in one of Crowder's thing, he was talking about people that come here on visas and overstay, like 21 Savage. But
No, it's Sir Savage the 21st.
that is
I
so
haven't heard that
funny.
one yet.
That is so funny. But anyways, there's a lot of people, if you look at it, there's twice as many Canadians come here and overstay their visa than Mexicans do, or people from Latin America or Central America. So, and but there's still a ton of people that just come here and they just don't leave, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't know, it's a huge topic. I mean, we're the greatest country, so obviously people want to come here. And we do have a ton of land just sitting. I mean, if you've driven from California to the East Coast, that you can drive for days without seeing a single human. So we have land out there, but is it our job to provide for other people that come from other countries just because they want our lifestyle? I don't know. That's the issue, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it's one of the issues. And again, we can save a lot of this talk for a different podcast, specifically when it comes to immigration reform and the wall and what that means for the country. So we can leave it at that if you want.
Yeah.
Should we go to Utah?
Should we go there?
No, not like actually go there. I'm just talking about Utah in the high school debate.
Oh, that was in Utah? I thought that was in
Utah.
Oh.
Well, it was
in Arizona.
sorry, it was Utah high school seniors that lost the debate.
Oh, they're just mad that they lost that debate. Here, let me open that one up. School right. Okay, who wants to explain what happened?
Lemons, you can go for it.
All right. So there was a high school debate down in Arizona, I think, and where essentially one side was there to they were talking about legal immigration, which is kind of ironic. So it was the United States federal government should substantially reduce restriction on legal immigration. And these Utah high school students were the negative, so they were supposed to argue the point, and the other team was supposed to argue for it. And basically what happened, the first team that was supposed to be for that resolve didn't give a clear answer.
And they didn't get to choose, right? They didn't get to choose what side they were on. They were given which side, right?
I believe so.
Okay.
I believe so. So they weren't given they weren't really given anything that they could argue. Like, it was just a general statement that there was no positive or negative side to it. So they were just left kind of out in the open with nothing to put onto their side. And that other team wasn't called out for that. So they had to try to argue back and all this kind of stuff. So long story short, they end up quoting Ben Shapiro and Jordan Peterson, and the judge of that argument or that debate said that they were essentially disqualified for quoting white supremacists, and that they were being racist and didn't know anything because they were white men. So
okay.
I'm so triggered right now.
I know.
Okay.
Let me be the tip of the spear on this one, and I won't say too much because
no, you do. I don't have much
out.
opinion on this, but
I do as well. But
okay.
Go for it.
Okay. Well, as Spaghetti and I already established in our previous podcast, Ben Shapiro is our Lord and Savior.
Jesus.
Okay.
No, I mean, wait, whoa! Don't be. You're not speaking for me.
I think it needs to be said, and you cannot dispute this, that he is, in fact, our Lord and Savior. Now, moving away from that,
yeah. Continue.
moving away from that, I think two main issues here. Obviously, one is I don't even know if that's actually an issue because this isn't a legal case, but I was going to say freedom of speech. But again, on second thought, it's not really about that.
You also
I
don't really
just think,
have freedom of speech in school, so that's a separate issue.
yeah. So let's scrub that idea. I'll go to something else. This is just another case of people claiming that certain people are white supremacists because they have no idea what they actually stand for and they heard it on the news at some point.
Well,
And I think
also,
we
sorry, never mind.
go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say that a big issue too that I noticed when I was watching the actual video, I think the reason they even started quoting those people is because the other people's argument was that they couldn't have an opinion on a specific subject because they were white.
Yeah, that's a whole argument that we can
Hmm.
in a
Yeah,
minute.
we
But
talked about that a little bit last time too, but anyways, yeah, continue, sorry.
yeah, so again, it's like when these conservative speakers get the heckler's veto when they try to speak at a college. We have all these people coming out the woodwork saying, "Oh, this is a Nazi, a white supremacist." When in reality, if you watch any Shapiro or Peterson, it's nothing even close to that. And any reasonable person, at least I would understand that if they actually go back and they watch what these two people are saying. So to even make that claim, especially if you're a moderator, and I don't know how old the moderator was a teacher or a student or anyone like that, to disqualify someone and to say that they were quoting a white supremacist, that's immature and it's disingenuous and it's a lie. And I think especially if it was a teacher who shut this down, that honestly, I'm just embarrassed, and I'm embarrassed for the students. I'm embarrassed for the school. But the issue is that I don't think anyone else really cares.
Well, it
And
was kind of like what we talked about last week, how I was saying you can say what you want about Ben Shapiro, but one thing you can't say about him is that he's a Nazi, right?
exactly.
But people just say those kind of things because it's a nice soundbite and they haven't actually watched anything he has to say. But
Yeah, well, and going off of that, they do quote one of the quotes that the students used in here, which I thought was brilliant. Like if you take the name away from it, I thought it was brilliant and it made sense. Where I mean, this was after they were, so him and his partner said they couldn't talk about fairness because they're white males, and in response to that, he used a Shapiro quote, but just take out the name, I guess. Evil things are still evil, even if I'm a white, well-off religious man, and good things are still good, even if I'm a white, well-off religious man. So, like, I think that speaks for itself. And if you take out the name, like if they didn't say, "Oh, this is from Ben Shapiro," I think the judge would have been like, "Oh, that's great." So I agree with Toxic that it's ridiculous that they're disqualifying these guys just because of who they're quoting, and they're also mislabeling the people they're quoting.
yeah,
So I don't know. I thought it was like a great quote. I thought it was a good argument, and then the person's like, "No, we're not going to use it just because it's said by this person."
well, it's because if you were in a debate talking about something like whatever, what were they talking about? Illegal immigration, whatever.
Yeah.
If they had used like a quote from Hitler or something like that,
Mhm.
would it have been okay to disqualify him for using that
Well,
kind of quote?
so are we saying Shapiro and Peterson are similar to Hitler?
No, I'm
Yeah,
just
that's
no. Answer, but no, I'm just saying if yes or
Uh,
no.
um, I think that's completely different.
Well, not. But
Uh,
my point is not to this moderator. It's not. If this guy
okay.
in his
Yeah, I
mind
guess.
thinks that he's equating Ben Shapiro to being a white supremacist, and if
Hmm.
we agree that that quoting what David Duke or whoever in an argument about illegal immigration, if that's
Hmm.
going to be thrown out, then if this guy really thinks that Ben Shapiro is on par with those kind of people, then he had the right to throw them out, right?
Yeah,
I don't
I get.
understand what you're saying.
I mean,
I kind
in his
I kind of
mind,
get.
he justified why he was throwing it out. We understand because we have watched Ben Shapiro videos and we know what his stances are, that he's not like that. but
Yeah.
he had a justification in his mind as to why, and I mean, it was an uninformed justification, but I can see why, if you really think that, why he's throwing out that argument, I guess. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. I get what you're saying. I mean, it's about, and Toxic hates when I say this. It's about the
Oh man.
perspective. It's about the perspective that the judge has
Yeah.
on Shapiro and Peterson, and that's the whole thing. Which I mean, this article does get at that. So I get where you're coming from on that. I think that it's a tough argument. I do think it
No, it's not.
was. No, I think it was that with the debate, with how it was going, these students were there to argue the negative side. Of course, they're going to be using certain people's material because, like, Shapiro and Peterson have a certain view of immigration. So if that's the side they're supposed to argue, of course these students are going to use those people to argue that side. So I feel like the team was just put into a bad situation that they weren't given an outing on at all.
Mm-hmm.
So,
But what outing did they need?
well, no, they.
It was
Okay.
because it was something. If you watch the video, they had. I don't really understand because I don't know how their debate team type works, but it was something like the opposition didn't give any sort of like they speech or anything, like they didn't give any point on their side, so the two guys didn't have anything to respond to, so they would have immediately lost, right? It was something
Yeah.
like that, something super confusing like that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It
Toxic.
was,
I guess what I'm trying to get at is that no matter what they said in that situation, they were kind of boned anyway.
yeah, they couldn't really
So
do anything.
yeah, it just happened to be Shapiro and Peterson quotes, and for some reason that took it to
All
another
right.
level.
Well, let me go back and shoot down Spaghetti's argument because I
It's not
think
my argument. I'm just saying. I'm trying to think from his point of view. I'm saying
okay.
it's an
Let me rephrase what I said.
ill-informed point of view.
Let me confront the argument that you gave. Not that it's not your argument. It's
Okay,
not
okay,
what
that's
you
fine.
believe.
That's fine.
What someone has in their mind, whatever thought they have, has nothing to do with reality. If you want to think that the sky is red and you live your life thinking that the sky is red and every choice you make based on the sky is red, that doesn't change the fact that the sky is blue. So you can try to justify your actions in any way you want because in your head things are different. But what's in your head does not trump reality.
Well, when you're a administrator or a teacher and they're your students, it does trump what they have to say. It's not
Yeah, but
it's not democracy.
yeah, that is true. You can stop what's happening. I'm not debating that, but you do need to be held accountable for your actions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm surprised. I don't know what kind of school it was, but I'm surprised that kind of level of debate was even allowed. I don't know. It seemed like it was getting, if I were the teacher, I feel like I wouldn't have even let it get to that point, you know?
Well, so I think what this was, by the way, is like a national debate kind of thing, where schools from all over the area, because I have friends in high school that did this. Schools from like all over the country would come to an, and they would be like a debate club kind of thing, but
Mm-hmm.
it would be teams from a bunch of schools from all over the place. So I don't think this was one school. Like I don't think the kids knew each other. The ones that
Okay.
were debating against each other, they don't think they knew each other. They were from completely different
Yeah,
areas.
but I just feel like still it's if it's a school sponsored function, I think it's a little inappropriate to be having kids do that kind of debate back and forth with those. I don't know. It's just I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
So what is the solution then? Just to coddle them and to only talk?
Well, you have to. It's a tough. I don't know. It's tough to navigate with.
Here's in the beginning of this conversation, I said there were two things coming up, and I want to transition to the second thing because I think it's so much more important than the first issue we were talking about. And it really bothers me on a personal level based on my own observations working for universities. A lot of conservatives will argue that there is an indoctrination that occurs the minute someone starts going to school until the minute they finish school. And I think this is a perfect example of what's happening, where students are taught by their teachers or professors at whatever grade level you want to talk about. They're taught a specific point of view that happens to be leftist more times than not, and they're only taught one way of thinking. They're not taught how to think, but what to think. And this is just a perfect example of
Yeah.
not being exposed to different viewpoints, whether or not that be conservative, whatever you want to call it. And it's a serious issue because people aren't exposed to different points of view and they don't understand how to tackle those concepts.
I'm just saying that it got to a point where if you're the teacher and you hear your students yelling at each other about like being racist and like accusing each other of those kind of things, I think that they let it go too far. Obviously, it's okay to have structured debate with facts and between your students and stuff, but to let them get to the point where they're yelling at each other about like accusing each other of being racist or not being able to have opinions on something because of their race or something without stepping in as a teacher, I just feel like it's a little much.
Yeah, but I think they're taking the wrong way of doing it, because what you're saying is if a debate gets out of hand, that, what am I trying to say? Basically, what they should have done was attacked the content of the speech and not the actual people.
Yeah, okay.
What do you mean? Who?
The teacher, the moderator, whoever it is. So if your students, I guess this is a different way of saying it, if your students are going after one another and they're claiming Johnny over here is a racist, whoever's making that accusation needs to be held accountable if there's no actual evidence of it. Because this is a debate after all, right? So you need to actually stay on topic and provide facts and evidence and not just attack the other person. And if you do devolve this into just an attack one person against the other, then the person who's on offense needs to be penalized for it.
Yes. Yeah, it was a shit show pretty much.
Well, the thing that bothers me, and this is kind of along the same lines, it kind of goes with it. Like the definition of a debate is basically like a formal discussion where you put opposing arguments against each other. It's like that's the whole point of a debate, is you put your side out there and then the other person gives their side, and they are generally going to oppose each other. And I feel like nowadays, especially in colleges, like especially when I was in college and I was not a fan of it, I feel like the definition of debate has been changed. So instead of actually debating something, you give your side, someone else gives yours, and it doesn't go with yours, then you're just wrong. Where a debate is supposed to be about conflicting ideas, and there's not, a lot of the times there's not necessarily a winner of a debate because people's minds don't change, but it's to get those ideas out there and see and just let you think about it.
Yeah.
And I feel like nowadays, especially like with this, it's like, okay, so they gave their argument and it didn't quite agree with the first one, so they're wrong. So now therefore they're racist, which I thought was stupid. And I agree with Toxic about the judge thing. Like they should be, why are they calling the students racist when they're just giving an opposing viewpoint? That's the whole point of the debate.
Well,
Right.
yeah.
Go ahead, Spaghetti.
I don't know. It just evolved. It wasn't. I think the part that I watched that was recorded, I don't even think that was the actual debate. I think that was just them arguing after the debate, because I think that the guys had lost the debate for whatever, because they had quoted Shapiro or whoever. So I think what we were able to watch was just them arguing afterwards. And I don't know if who was being called racist though. I mean, I know the guys called the girls racist for saying they weren't allowed to have an opinion because they were white, right?
Yeah. Well, and then the judge and the opposing team, not the Utah students team, called the Utah students racist because they were quoting quote unquote white supremacists.
Okay.
Which is BS, as we all know.
Yeah. Okay, and then Toxic, what were you gonna say?
I was just going to say another good example of this is this debate I watched with my man Jordan Peterson and
Mm.
a few others. I forgot what venue it was or what the name of the host was, but they're having this debate and they were talking about PC culture. And obviously, Peterson was arguing against PC culture, and he was up against a guy who I believe is named Michael Eric Dyson. I don't know if you've ever heard of
Oh
him.
yeah, yes, yes,
Um,
yes, yes, yes.
but I can't stand that guy because he's a professional race baiter, just like my friend Don Lemon and that other really annoying guy, Al Sharpton. But basically, what happened is Peterson and his teammate on his um,
The
on the
British guy.
anti-PC side, yeah, they were on point the entire time. They were talking about the subject. They were giving examples, stuff like that. But then Michael Eric Dyson comes in and he says, "Well, Peterson, you're just an angry white man." And on two different exchanges, he said the same thing. You're a mean, mad white man. And some people in the crowd just ate it up. They were clapping and thinking it was great. And it just goes back to this thing where if you're having a debate, you need to actually stay on topic and talk about what the actual debate is about. And as soon as you delve into personal attacks, especially attacks that don't have any evidence to support them, that's on you, and you need to be held accountable because it's a very shallow way of basically saying, "Look, I don't have an argument, so I'm just going to call you a piece of shit, and hopefully it works."
Yeah. Are you talking about Stephen Fry, by the way?
Yeah.
Yes.
The British guy? Yeah. I love that debate because uh, on the topic of PC, Stephen Fry is normally
He's pretty liberal,
on the
isn't he?
he's normally fairly liberal, and he says in the debate he chose on purpose to go on Jordan Peterson's side because people need to realize you're not always one side or the other, and you need to actually think about what's going on, not just because of the person that's up there, but actually what's being discussed,
Mm-hmm.
which I thought was brilliant. And that guy's one of the smartest people ever. Like
Well,
in
that's
just
like
general, he's just a genius.
when Toxic
Yeah.
calls me a super liberal and then gets surprised when all my views aren't super liberal.
Yeah.
Because you don't just have one side of the. I mean, most people, or you shouldn't just have views from one side or the other.
Well, okay. In my own defense, it's because
Oh
you
my God.
you swallowed the red pill, and now you're a
I
conservative.
did
So,
not. I did not. I'm just a
but,
regular, everyday person that has views
but
from
really
both
Oh.
quick,
sides.
back to that debate that we were talking about, the one with Michael Eric Dyson.
Mhm.
At another part, he made a gay joke against Stephen Fry. I don't know if you guys caught that.
Yeah.
Nah.
So here's this total scumbag that's attacking both of his opponents, not because of the content of their speech, but because who they are as people.
Yeah.
Yet for whatever reason,
And
that's
yeah,
seen as
and their
okay.
sexual orientation and skin color. Yeah.
Right. And they just eat it up like it's like, oh, it's all good. No, it's not okay. You can't do that in a debate, and you should be held accountable for it. It's like whenever this tends to happen all the time on the left. Sorry, or you'll have to edit that out in post. Spaghetti.
Why?
What happens is they'll be in a debate and they'll
I
be
see what you
losing,
did.
and then they'll just say, "Oh, well, you're a racist." And as soon as they throw out the R word is like the N word. It's the same thing these days. If you get called a racist, you're done. It's over. And I
Mm-hmm.
see that all the time in debates, and it's just so annoying because although it's shallow and easy to see through, people still accept it, and they're like, "Oh, well, I guess that person won."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Without evidence. And it can ruin someone, which is a perfect segue. I don't know if you have any more anything else to say about this, but that segues pretty well into the McInnes thing, calling someone a
Yeah.
racist. And
I'm good to
Yeah,
go
we can
on.
go into Gavin, and I guess I'll take lead on this because I think I have a lot more Gavin experience than the two of you do.
well, yeah, do you want
Probably.
to say our opinions on the guy first, or what?
Sure, I
Just go
guess we
ahead.
can start there. So when it comes to Gavin, I'm well aware of the reputation that he has as a provocateur, and people call him racist and all this other stuff. But I've been watching him for quite a few years now because for him, and I don't know his entire backstory, but he's a comedian. That's what he does. He's a funny guy. So I've seen plenty of videos of him way before he got really provocative, and I think he's just extremely funny. So
Mhm.
I've always had a liking of him, even when other people didn't like him, and outed more and more. But I mean, I'll come out and say it. I'm a Gavin defender. I think he's made plenty of mistakes, but at the end of the day, he's a comedian. He's hilarious. So I back him up.
Okay. Lemons, do you have an opinion on him?
I honestly don't know too much on the topic, to be honest, but just from reading that article, which we should probably give a general idea of it, but I don't know. I don't know enough about the group to say if I find it as like an extremist group or anything, like this article supposedly says it is. I think that it's interesting that he's leaving it, even though he was the founder of it and doesn't want to be associated with it now that it's being called a.
Well, do you want to have Toxic give a summary of like what you're talking about first?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that.
Is that me?
Buddy, that's you.
What am I doing?
All right, well, you want to give a summary because he was talking
of what happened?
Well, yeah, sure.
Okay, long story short, the group, the Proud Boys, if you're not familiar with it, is basically, and I'm going to give you a biased interpretation of it, and then I'll try to get into more
I'll give the counter to that because we have different opinions on it.
Okay.
Yeah, well, not necessarily, but we'll get into that. Basically, there's a group that McInnes started called the Proud Boys. He started it as a joke, just to have like a men's club, because men clubs, you just don't see them these days. So he started it as a way of just hanging out with guys, doing your typical masculine stuff, like getting drunk, roasting each other 24/7. But he did not plan for how popular this group was going to be. So the group really exploded in the amount of people that it had, and sex as in SECTS, all over the world, like in Australia and Japan and all this other stuff. And what ended up happening, in defense of everyone who thinks it's a bunch of bullshit racists, there were occasions where real white supremacists or racists, whatever you want to call them, they did actually get into the group, and they were causing quite a ruckus, and it took the group some time to kick those people out. But because of a lot of things that have been happening, since when McInnes gives a talk at a college or any other venue, he'll bring his Proud Boys with him to defend him, because they often get attacked by Antifa and all this other garbage happens. And then you see in the news, Proud Boys fights innocent civilians and they're beating people up and whatnot. And between the instances of violence and also instances of having bad people in the group, they got labeled as a hate group, and the SPLC, the Southern Poverty Law Center, they labeled the group as being white supremacist or nationalist, whatever you want to call it, a hate group, I should say.
Yeah.
And we'll get into it, but there's been allegations against the SPLC before for basically just saying, we don't like you, so you're a hate group. And they kind of just label people that way in order to shut them down. McInnes is fighting right now. He's suing the SPLC for, I guess you would say, defamation, because his group isn't actually a hate group, or at least that's his argument.
Okay. So hold on, because I was just gonna look up. There's one other guy. I remember he was on Rogan. Sam Harris. That's who it is. Sam Harris was also having issues with the Southern Poverty. What is it? Law Center.
Yeah.
And
before you even go any further, I had no idea. So it kind of just strengthens my own argument, which I'll get into. But go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it was a while ago, but I remember he was on Joe Rogan, and he was talking about how, I think he was labeled an Islamophobe or something on with that group or whatever. And he was just talking to Rogan about that. So I hadn't heard of that group until then, but so they just pretty much have a website, or I guess it's a corporation, whatever, where they look for different sorts of hate groups in the country. And so they branded just the Proud Boys, right? Did they brand him specifically a white supremacist or something like that?
I do not believe so. I think they just went after the group.
Yeah,
Okay,
they kind of
I
associate, but they went after the group, but they
actually,
associated him with the group.
well, here, let's
So
see.
it makes sense. Yeah.
Let me pull up.
Right.
I have the actual
Actually, so because
sorry.
he was the leader of the group.
Okay, yeah. So straight from the SPLC website, Proud Boys, established in the midst of the 2016 presidential election by Vice Media co-founder, which I didn't know, that's surprising. Co-founder Gavin McInnes, the Proud Boys are self-described Western chauvinists who admittedly deny any connection to the racist alt-right, insisting they are simply a fraternal group spreading an anti-political correctness and anti-white guilt agenda. And so they write a whole little, oh wow, it's just long. They write a bunch about the group. But I guess, do you want to hear my opinion of the group before I read
Yeah.
into it? I mean,
Yeah, go ahead.
I guess I was talking to you about it recently, but because you showed me. First of all, I don't really like the guy. Because I saw one video about him trying to explain how um the Confederate flags and the Civil War have nothing to do with racism and stuff with that, which I totally don't agree with, and there's evidence against it, and we can get into that at some point. But I think it's just a ridiculous argument. And isn't the guy Canadian? So why does he have any say in like what does he know about that? But anyways, and then I was looking at some videos where he's like advocating his people to just go out and beat people up, and one of his tiers in the group, he has like 4 tiers or something, um, and one of the tiers is to go to jail for getting in a fight. I mean, supposedly defending, what is it, toxic, defending their beliefs or something like that. But he's
I
still
think whatever.
advocating he's still advocating fighting and going to jail and stuff, which I think is ridiculous because it's just as bad as what like Antifa and all that is doing. So I don't know. I'm not a big fan.
Lemons.
Yeah, I don't know enough about the guy. I haven't done research on him, but it seems like just they're getting put in a different light than what they really are. I'm sure there are certain things about them that are very questionable, like the tier thing seems kind of absurd. Um, and I think to an extent they could be seen as an extremist group, but it doesn't sound like they're like what's the term? What was the term? A hate group?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't seem like they're a hate group to me. They're just kind of, I mean, they have their own political agenda, I guess.
Yeah, but it is a little convenient that the alt-right is being able to infiltrate them without them noticing, or that they also have similar views, you know? You don't want to be that close to such like far right-leaning ideologies, right?
I disagree with that argument because let's say we're putting me on a political spectrum. I'm going to be a lot closer to the far right than the left.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but
Yeah, but you're not far right.
these guys are between you and the alt-right though.
Sure, which is like a moderate, not a moderate. That's just like a standard Republican if you're looking at it.
I I don't know. They seem a little too far right. I don't know.
Well, there are definitely things that can be said about it. For instance, if you're talking about their particular views, they're very clear when they say that they're Western chauvinists, meaning they believe the
The
West is
West
the
is the
best.
best. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're, your typical leftist, I think they have issues with people talking like that because basically what you're saying is the United States and countries like it are better than every other culture there is. And I do agree with that statement. But the question is, do you think that that qualifies as being listed as alt right or a hate group, or do you think there is some nuance to it?
Yeah, there's obviously nuance, but they're still very close, I think. You know, I think you are further away from them than they are to the alt-right, I think. I don't know. They're too. I think it's in their antics at rallies and stuff are just. It just seems fascist to me. If they're gonna call Antifa fascist for going to rallies and disrupting and looting and all that stuff, which is like fascist behavior, I think this group is doing the same sort of stuff, just on the other side.
I, for the most part, disagree with that.
Okay.
Specifically, because they don't go somewhere causing disruptions or looting or destruction of property. What they've been guilty of is getting in fights, physical fights with Antifa.
Yeah.
So I think there's a very big difference between causing civil unrest and causing a fist fight with your rival group.
Well, I mean, it is a good distinction, but I think that is still civil unrest to be going to these rallies, and I mean, you might think they're not actually actively trying to get into fights, but I mean, if McInnes has one of his tiers as you need to go to jail for defending, you're obviously going to be more apt to, if a fight breaks out, to actually get in there and get arrested or at least try and fight. I don't think that
Yeah,
should be glorified, I guess.
yeah,
I agree
yeah.
with that.
I
Yeah.
can totally see that. I disagree with it, but I totally get where you're coming from. My stance is, and from what I've seen a whole lot of footage of Proud Boy versus Antifa fights because I personally find it very entertaining. Um, but Gavin, from what I've seen, has always said, don't pick fights with people. Wait until they hit you, and then just beat the shit out of them. You can say that isn't right, and then it's just making the situation worse. And in some respects, you'd be correct to say that. Me personally, I'm really into defense, especially when people are attacking you just for speaking. So I have no issue if they decide to gang up and defend themselves.
Yeah. Can I
Yeah.
take a slightly different direction?
Okay.
Because I feel like we're just going to keep going back and forth, and I know we could for hours more. Kind of moving past the groups and the exact definition of what they are, I guess. How do we feel about him saying now that he's leaving?
Yeah, that is interesting. I didn't know about that until last night when I was looking into it. Toxic, do you know more about that?
Yeah, he gave a whole speech about what happened, and to give you the short rundown, there was a fight between the Proud Boys and Antifa, and a couple of Proud Boys got arrested, and they're on trial right now for multiple different crimes. And McInnes was basically saying that he spoke with the group's lawyer, and the lawyer said, look, if you want to really help your guys out to avoid them getting long sentences, you need to just leave the group. And hopefully the judge will see that and say, okay, things aren't as bad as they are, and maybe we'll cut your guys some slack.
Okay. Because what I'm looking at right now, August 21st, 2017 was I guess, on their official Proud Boy website, was the last post I guess he made, it looks like. Um, and it's kind of what we were talking about. He is talking about how there's been a lot of alt-right people. Oh, as it was near Charlottesville. And he's talking about how the alt-right is trying to infiltrate the group, and he says, "How do I know if a member is alt-right? What if I see Proud Boys at an alt-right rally? That type of stuff." So it looks like he was trying to. I don't know if this is before or after the time period you're talking about, but he was trying to disassociate the group and himself from the alt-right as of 2017.
Yeah, I think it's something that I think he's making that move to help with that disassociation, I guess, because he's viewed in a certain light that it doesn't seem like he should be. But it seems like, and we'll definitely have to do another podcast about this, but it seems like it's kind of one of those situations where even though he's trying to push it the other way, it's getting fully pushed towards his association with the alt-right, I guess, by the media.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been exploded. Like, I think they lean right for sure, but the specifications, and once again, I don't know a ton of detail on this, but just from what I know at face value, it looks like they're leaning that way, and media's pushed them all the way over there, even when they're trying to resist it. So
Yeah.
it just in a common view, I guess.
Yeah, and then I guess we can pivot towards how this has to do with the Southern poverty, because right now I'm looking at he's got a website. I don't know when this is. This is a recent thing though. Like within this week is when he started suing Southern poverty.
Yeah.
And he's got a website, defendgavin.com. He has pledged $250,000. He's made about 50,000 at the moment with 1,000 donors. And he has a little a little paragraph about it, but he's basically just saying he's being sued, and he's suing them, and he's not doing it just because they're destroying his career, but he's doing it because he doesn't want this to happen to anybody, basically.
Yeah.
That like the fake, or in his mind, like the wrongful labeling of being alt-right or a hate group or anything.
Yeah. I can back him on that.
I've seen a lot of issues with the SPLC. I can't cite specific examples right now, but the issue that a lot of these people have who are targeted by the SPLC is that this is a group that is not elected. They have no real power. It's just a group with some credibility for some reason that labels other groups that they disagree with as hate groups, and there's no way to fight that other than to sue them.
Oh yeah, well, where was I just reading about this? Maybe it was one of these articles, but or I was watching a YouTube video talking about this, and someone else, I don't remember who it was, but someone else that's pretty big, sued them recently and won. Do you know who that is?
No, I don't remember.
I'll have to find that out, because yeah, someone did what he's trying to do because of defamation, and they won. So I'll have to look into who that was. But yeah, he even writes, the SPLC isn't a civil rights group; it's a money machine.
Yeah, there's one thing about this group that, because once again, I don't know too much about the SPLC, but this is kind of just a general idea in my head of, if you're looking for something, you're going to find it. And if it's a nonprofit organization, if they're specifically looking for cases of hate groups, white supremacist groups, no matter what they're looking at, they're going to be able to find something in it that shows what they're looking for. Like, they're going to be able to make it look that way, and that delegitimizes it a little bit for me. Just because, like, if they're strictly looking for it, of course they're going to find it.
Yeah, if you go looking for something, you're going to find it. Well, yeah, but they have plenty. I mean, there's plenty of hate in the country that they could be going after and putting their effort towards. But then we get to the thing where, like with the high school kids, people are just being falsely labeled as hate groups or white supremacists and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I guess McInnes is doing something about it, so maybe it'll make a change for people like Shapiro and Peterson and whoever else.
Hopefully.
But then maybe it could go too far. I don't know, Toxic, if you agree with this, but if it goes too far and then people are able to use them as an example and say, oh, I'm also not racist, I'm like them, I'm just misunderstood,
when they actually are.
Well, then it's up to individuals to decide whether or not they're hateful. I don't think that some random organization of people who just assemble together can decide, oh, you're a hate group today because we disagree with you.
Yeah.
And let's say the SPLC rightfully labeled the KKK a hate group. Just because the SPLC did it, that doesn't mean you should take it and just believe it is true. You need to do your own investigation, regardless of what the topic is.
Mm-hmm.
I would hesitate if anybody just jumps in and assumes that is the correct conclusion.
Yeah,
and that isn't a defense of the
them.
KKK for anyone who's listening.
But who's citing the SPLC? You know, I mean, maybe other people are. I had never really heard about them, so I don't know.
I see it all the time.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I think regardless of SPLC versus any other news source or organization, it's like I still think it's on to people, especially in America, need to do their own research and develop an opinion of their own rather than just immediately going to what they're told, which I know you guys touched on last week, to some extent.
Yeah.
Like it's there shouldn't be just one view versus one other. It's kind of like a spectrum of views where you kind of have to develop your own, and it can be influenced if you're not informed. So
Yeah. Toxic.
Yeah,
anything?
so I think a lot of that comes down to the laziness of the average person who just doesn't want to do the research.
yep,
Yeah.
100% agree.
And they are prejudices, thinking those
Mhm.
kind of things about someone without really knowing or having facts
Yeah.
about it, or just because you think something is a prejudice. Okay. Anything else about that? You guys had a couple of things you wanted to talk about, or do you want to save that? We've been on for
Um,
almost 2 hours, I think.
I would leave the Gavin discussion at that. I would just say again, I support my man's,
Oh my god.
and I think he's funny. Obviously, he is a provocateur and he says a lot of crazy shit, but I think he's funny.
Yeah, but he also says serious things like the Civil War wasn't about slavery, and then I just lose you.
Yeah, but here's the thing. When you're listening to a speaker, your goal should not be to believe everything or to agree with everything that they say. That's not your
I mean,
goal.
that's a pretty egregious thing to say. If you're trying to be a very factual like person and not be misrepresented, you don't say shit like that, you know?
I
Yeah, I
disagree.
agree with that.
Okay.
I got mixed feelings on this, but I think we
Well,
should go more in. I think we should go more into podcast about things like that, like media and how how it influences people's views.
Yeah, so do you want to wrap this up and then just figure some stuff out for the next time?
I think
here,
so.
yeah, I think that's what we should do. But there were two other small things.
Well, oh god, hold on,
IQ
hold on.
test.
Pause. Couldn't hear you. Back it up. This time you're the one
Dude,
with the bad Wi-Fi, son. I'm telling you.
no, do you want me to do a speed test?
Dude, this whole time, like when Lemon's
This
been
is
talking,
hilarious.
your mic, I can hear him echo in your mic.
Okay, what I was going to say was that we can save the bigger topics for later, but there were two smaller things we were going to cover, and one of them was Lemons taking an IQ test, but I don't remember. Oh, the kid wearing the hammer and sickle hat. That was the other one.
Oh man, okay.
I feel like we could do. I feel like we could do those next time.
I mean, I can preface the
It's
hammer
up
and
to you
sickle
guys.
one, and maybe you can like tease it. I mean, if anyone's got this far into this podcast, they're psychotic.
Yeah. Well, I
But
was gonna
Okay,
say the IQ thing is like I kind of want to talk about it in a little bit more detail.
so,
Not specifically me taking the test, but just the idea of an IQ test.
did you find out that you should have been in special ed this whole time?
No. I'll share with.
okay.
Do you want to
I can
just
share
not
with
even
you.
mention it until next time, or do you want to just go all out on it?
I don't care.
Well, let's do it next time. It's been almost 2 hours.
It's been an hour and 25 minutes since the actual start of the recording.
Okay.
Okay, and then there are some edits that need to occur, so it'll be like an hour and 15, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I can. Okay. Do you want to just wrap it up?
Yeah, we'll wrap it up. So next time, some things we can talk about is the idea behind an IQ test, and also high school kids wearing a hammer and sickle hat.
They wasn't even
And
in
then,
high school. That's the problem. It was in middle school.
okay, well, we'll save your outrage for the next episode.
Okay, but also just because you took an IQ test and found out you're dumb does not mean there's a problem with the IQ system, Lemons.
No, we'll get into it.
Yeah.
All
Okay.
right, boys, let's save it
Let's
for
wrap
the
this up.
actual next one. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Let's wrap it up, and maybe we'll get a Morm Chow on here, and we can have a religious debate at some point or conversation.
Yeah, I'll work on the scheduling.
All right. Well,
Alrighty.
if you watch this far, then you are a saint, and most likely you're one of our friends. So yeah, cool. All right. Good chat, boys. All
See
right.
ya.
See you next time.
Bye.
All right. 3, 2, 1. All right. This is podcast number 2 of The Last Bastion. We got Mr. Toxic Masculinity. Oh, fuck me sideways.